Hello students, I'm Dr. Radha from IIT Bhadal. What is learning organization? Learning organization is the organization where people continually expand their capacity to create the results they truly desire, where new and expansive patterns of thinking are nurtured, where collective aspirations is set free, and where people are continually learning to see the whole together. Thus, a learning organization is dependent upon its human resources who learn and put the acquired knowledge into practice. It's also apparent that learning is enhanced when organizational culture is conducive, allows a person to take risk and do experiment. The underlying principle for the learning organizations is that during sudden and swift environmental changes, only flexible, adaptive, and productive organizations survive and perform well. For this to happen, an organization must be able to take best advantage for its employees' competence, knowledge, and ability to acquire new skills. Despite the fact that all people have the ability to learn, the organizational structures are not always favorable for learning and contemplation. Besides, people may be deficient in the tools and guidance to help them decipher the prevailing situations. Therefore, changes in the organizational systems, structures, strategies, and policies may be urgently required. For a learning organization, mere survival is not enough. Along with survival, adaptive learning, generative learning is equally important. Adaptive learning means learning how to survive in continuously changing environments, whereas generative learning means the learning that enhances an organization's capacity to create. There is two types of learning: single loop learning and double loop learning. Single loop learning involves improving the organization's capacity to achieve known objectives. It is related with habitual and behavioral learning. This learning takes place without any alteration in the elementary concepts of the organization. Whereas double loop learning re-examines the characteristics of the organizational intent and the values and beliefs surrounding these. The organization's culture undergoes a change in double loop learning. Both single and double loop learning organizations have made a drastic change in the present times due to introduction of adaptive learning. Adaptive learning involves changing the basic assumptions of the organization pertaining to the organization culture, value system, and structure. It was found that adaptive learning was not enough. This has led to the need of a more important generative learning. Generative learning involves creativity and innovations, and it results into a total reframing of an organization's experiences and learning from these. There are 5 dimensions of a learning organization: systems thinking, personal mastery, mental models, shared vision, and team learning. Systems thinking. The idea of the learning organization evolved from the concept of systems thinking. This is a conceptual framework that allows people to study business as bounded objects. This method is utilized by learning organizations for assessment of the company and to comprise information systems that enable performance measurement of the organization as a whole and its subcomponents. According to the concept of systems thinking, every single attribute must be obvious at once in an organization for it to be a learning organization. If some of these attributes are missing, the organization will fall short of its goal. Personal mastery. It is a determination of an individual to the course of learning acquired through staff training, continuous self-development and ability of its employees to learn swiftly, personal mastery provides an organization a competitive edge over others. On the other hand, uninterested employees cannot be forced to undergo learning process. Research shows that most of the learning that take place at the workplace is incidental and not formal. Therefore, it is important to develop a culture where personal mastery is accomplished on a routine basis. A learning organization is said to be the sum of individual learning, but it must devise the means to convert individual learning into organizational learning. Mental models. The assumptions held by individuals and organizations are called mental models. To become a learning organization, these models must be challenged. Individuals tend to promote theories that they intend to follow, and theories in use which describe what they truly do. Likewise, organizations tend to have memories which preserve certain behaviors, norms, and values. To create a learning environment, replacing confrontational attitudes with an open culture that supports questioning as well as mutual trust is very essential. For this purpose, organization needs to trace and evaluate various theories of action. Unwanted values should be discarded. This process is also called unlearning. Shared vision. It's important to develop a shared vision as it motivates the employees to learn by creating a common character. The most successful visions are built on the basis of individual revelation of the employees at different levels of hierarchy. Traditional organizational structures act as a stumbling block in the conception of shared vision because in these structures the company vision is imposed from top. This is the reason that learning organizations tend to have flat and decentralized organizational structures. Team learning. The accruals of individual learning add up to team learning. The benefit of team or shared learning is that employees grow more quickly and the problem solving ability of the organization gets better due to improved knowledge bank and expertise. The structures of learning organizations have features like boundary crossing and openness that supports team learning. Team learning calls for employees to engage in exchange of ideas. Therefore, they must develop open communication, shared meaning, and shared understanding. Learning organizations possess brilliant knowledge management structures that allow creation, acquisition, dissemination, and execution of this knowledge in the organization. Let us talk about 6 antecedents of learning organization. The first one is the shift in the relative importance of the factors of production away from the capital towards labor and towards intellectual labor in particular. The increasing acceptance of labor as a prime source of competitive edge. The third antecedent is increasingly rapid pace of change in the business environment. Increasing dissatisfaction among managers and employees with the traditional command and control management paradigms. The increasing competitive nature of the global business environment and the greater demand being placed on all businesses by their customers. What are the characteristics of the learning organizations? First and foremost, future and external orientation. The learning organizations develop understanding of their environment. There exists widespread use of external sources and related advisors. For example, customers on the planning teams. Second is free flow and exchange of information. In these organizations, systems are in place to ensure that expertise is available where it is needed. Individuals network extensively, crossing organizational boundaries to develop their knowledge and expertise. Commitment to learning and personal development. There is support from top management People at all levels are encouraged to learn regularly, and learning is rewarded. Fourth is valuing people. People are highly valued resources. Ideas, creativity, and imaginative capabilities are stimulated, made use of, and developed. Diversity is recognized as a strength in these organizations. Then there is climate of openness and trust. An environment of openness and trust prevails. Individuals are encouraged to develop ideas, to express freely, and to challenge actions. Learning from experience. Learning from mistakes is more powerful than learning from achievement. Failures is tolerated provided lessons are learnt. Learning organizations can thus be easily distinguished from other organizations. There are certain factors which are exclusive to learning organizations. For example, employees in learning organizations feel that they are doing something that matters to them as well as to the society at large. Every individual in the learning organization is constantly learning and stretching himself. This enhances an individual's capacity to create. Team building and teamwork is a common practice because people feel that they are more intelligent in the group rather than while being alone. They believe in synergy. Transparency is considered an extremely important factor. Ongoing activities in the organization are shared with the employees so that they are able to understand how their action can influence others. People feel free to inquire about each other and their feelings, assumptions, and biases. People treat each other as colleagues. There exists a feeling of mutual trust and respect among them, and it is reflected in the way they talk and work with each other. This is not affected by their positions in the organizational chart. And lastly, people are empowered. They feel free to experiment, take risks, and share the results. Learning organization and role of leadership. There are three leadership roles that can rewrite the traditional approach of the leader being the master of the organizations. These are leader as a designer. If the organization is assumed to be a ship, the leader is likely to be the designer rather than the captain of the ship. This is because a leader is responsible for creating a common vision with shared values and purpose. Leader is responsible for shaping the policies, strategies, and structures that transform ideas into business decisions. And leader is also responsible for crafting efficient learning processes which allow for continuous improvement of the policies, strategies, and structures. Leader as a teacher. Second role that a leader plays in the learning organization is that of a teacher. The leader here is seen as a coach that works with the mental models present in the organization. He must understand these concepts of reality and restructure these views to be able to see beyond the superficial conditions and events into the underlying causes of the problem. Leader as a steward. This is the vaguest of the three and refers largely to the attitude of the leader. A leader is a part of something greater, whose desire is first and foremost not to show the way and lead from the front, but to strive to build a better organization and reshaping the way business traditionally operates. What are the building blocks of the learning organization? A learning organization has three building blocks. First and most important being a sportive learning environment. Second, concrete learning processes and practices. And third, the leadership behavior that provides reinforcement. Building block 1, a sportive learning environment. The environment of an organization must support the learning process. This environment should have four important characteristics, that is, psychological safety, approval of disparity, receptivity to new ideas, and time for reflection. Psychological safety is to learn. Employees should not fear being belittled or marginalized if they disagree with their colleagues or bosses, raise immature questions, admit slip ups, or present a minority viewpoint. Instead, they must be at ease while conveying these feelings about the work. Approval of disparity. Learning occurs when people become aware of conflicting ideas, identifying the importance of opposing and unconventional viewpoints boosts liveliness and inspiration, ignites new thoughts, and prevents lethargy and drift. Third is receptivity to new ideas. Learning is not about rectifying errors and resolving problems. It is also about crafting new approaches. Employees should be motivated to take risk and discover the untested and the unknown. Time for reflection. Most of the time, employees are appraised by the number of hours they spent in the office. When employees are excessively busy and are under tremendous pressure of meeting the deadlines, their ability to think analytically and creatively is compromised. Ability to learn from experience and to identify problems is also reduced. But a sportive learning environment allows enough time for the deliberation, thus promoting contemplative assessment of the organizational process. The next building block is concrete learning processes and practices. A learning organization is not made effortlessly. It starts from a series of distinct steps and extensively spread actions, unlike the working of the business processes such as logistics or ordering and billing or even new product development. Learning process involves the collection, generation, analysis, and distribution of information. This also includes experimentation for developing new products or services, market intelligence to keep an eye on the competitors and customers, technological drifts, analysis and interpretation of information to identify and solve problems, and educating and training the new as well as the established employees. For the maximum impact, knowledge must be shared in a methodical and efficient manner. Knowledge sharing can take place among individuals, groups, or organizations. Knowledge can travel either across or up and down within a firm. The knowledge sharing process can be internally focused or externally focused. It's internally focused when it has an eye towards taking corrective action immediately after completion of the project. There is usually a process of post audits or after action review, which are then shared with the relevant employees who are occupied with similar tasks. Externally oriented knowledge, for example, it might include regularly scheduled forums with customers or related experts to have their viewpoints on companies' activities or challenges. Both of these processes ensure that crucial information travels quickly and efficiently into the hands and heads of the people who need it. After action review, AAR process is the best known method of this approach and is widely used by many companies. It involves a systematic debriefing after every project. This process is framed by 4 questions. What did we aim to do? What in reality happened? Why did it happen? And what do we do next time? The third building block is leadership that supports learning. As we know that organizational learning is strongly influenced by the action of the leaders. When leaders enthusiastically question as well as listen to employees and promote discussions and deliberations, people in the organization get motivated to learn. If leaders give apt weightage to pondering over the problems for correct diagnosis, transfer of knowledge, and thoughtful post audits, these activities are likely to flourish. When leaders display willingness to consider different points of view, employees feel emboldened to offer new ideas and alternatives. While leadership behaviors help to create and sustain sportive learning environments, such environments make it easier for managers and employees to implement learning processes and practices smoothly and efficiently. The concrete processes offer opportunity for leaders to act in such a manner that fosters learning and cultivates the same behavior in others. What are the essentials to create a culture that supports a learning organization? The very first thing that is needed to create a learning organization is a successful leadership. It is not positioned on a conventional hierarchy but is a blend of diverse people from all levels of the system who lead in diverse ways. Secondly, there must be a realization that all individuals have inherent power to find solutions to the problems they are faced with, and that they can and will envision a future and forge ahead to create it. A learning organization's culture is based on honesty and trust, where individuals are persuaded for learning and innovating and are awarded for their efforts. This promotes experimentation, risk taking, and values the well being of all employees. Creation of a culture that will form the basis of the learning organization begins with a shift of mind. Employees should start to see themselves as connected to the world rather than as separate from the world. And employees should start to see themselves as integral elements in the workplace and not as separate and unimportant entities. Finally, one of the biggest challenges to be conquered in any organization is to identify and break down the ways people reason defensively. That is, resistance to change must be overcome. Until then, change can never be anything but a passing phase. Every employee must learn that steps traditionally used to define and solve problems can be very well become the cause of further problems for the organization. What are various stages towards a learning organization? Stage 1 is to create a communication system to facilitate the exchange of information, the basis on which any learning organization is built. There should be free flow of information, universal access to business and strategic information should be provided to employees. Complex concepts should be explained in easy to understand language. Stage 2. It is to organize a readiness questionnaire, a tool that assesses the gap between an organization's present status and where it would like to be in the future. The questionnaires should be administered to all or maximum number of employees, and these should be used to develop an assessment profile to design the learning organization initiative. Stage 3 is to commit to developing, maintaining, and facilitating an atmosphere that garners learning. Stage 4, it is to create a vision of the organization and write a mission statement with the help of all employees. Stage 5, it is to use training and awareness programs to develop skills and understanding attitudes that are needed to reach the goals of the mission statement, including the ability to work with others, become more verbal, and network with people across all the departments within the organization. Stage 6 includes to communicate a change in the company's culture by integrating human and technical systems. Stage 7 is to initiate the new practices by emphasizing team learning and contribution. As a result, employees will become more interested in self regulation and management and be more prepared to meet the challenges of an ever changing workplace. Stage 8 is to allow employees to question key business practices and assumptions. Stage 9 is to develop workable expectations for future actions. And stage 10 is to remember that becoming a learning organization is a long process and that small setbacks should be expected. It is a journey that is the most important thing because it brings everyone in the organization together to work as one large team. So let's now summarize what we have learned. A learning organization is dependent upon its human resources who learn and put the acquired knowledge into practice. Systems thinking, personal mastery, mental models, shared vision, and team learning is famous five dimensions of a learning organization. Learning is enhanced when organizational culture is conducive, allowing a person to take risk and experiment. A shift in the minds of employees to think differently, a conducive culture for knowledge creation and sharing, free flow of information, implies ability to take risk, experiment, and learn are the main necessities for an organization to become a learning organization. Thank you.